My name is Corinne Pacifico, and today I'm going to be presenting my final Practicum project report and experience for Liberty's Master in Public Health program. For my Practicum experience, I worked with the Department of Human Services in Arlington County, Virginia, on their data reports for the Crisis Intervention Center. The bulk of my hours were focused on cleansing the data for analysis, as well as observing the cultural competency and resources for vulnerable populations within the organization. So on this slide, we're going to be talking about the background of the Crisis Intervention Center. Arlington County Crisis Intervention Center is located in the heart of Arlington City and is a 24/7 call center with on-site support staff. The CIC provides behavioral health care services in a community-based setting for individuals in all forms of crisis. The primary goal of this center is to provide a comprehensive crisis stabilization care in a more outpatient-based setting as opposed to the ER. The Crisis Center is able to offer a very warm and comfortable environment that focuses on the client's recovery and overall wellness. The multidisciplinary team of nurse practitioners, nurses, social workers, case management, as well as support staff enables this organization to provide a broad spectrum of needs and support for individuals in crisis. The emergency department is primarily used for those in psychiatric crisis, and the CIC aims to alleviate the burden on EDs while enhancing the client's experience. Previous research on crisis-related visits suggests that many patients seek help in the emergency department, and their outcomes are often summed up by feelings of entrapment and overstimulation, which often worsens the symptoms of psychiatric crisis. I honestly went into this experience with a little bit of naivety because I assumed all the clients coming in were for suicidality-related reasons, and I learned through this experience that crisis is multifaceted and presents itself in many different forms, which opened my eyes to a lot of it, and most of this presentation is going to be showing what I did as far as the data collection and my overall interpretation of the organization. So now that we have a little bit of background on the organization that I did my practicum with, we're going to dive deeper into the goals and expectations set for this experience. The primary goal of my practicum was to clean the data set to be usable for stakeholders and other county officials to understand and see the utilization of the organization. When I was initially presented with the data sheet, I was very overwhelmed because of the current state the data was in. Every single column needed to be standardized, and most of the cells were missing data points or had issues within the formatting. I later learned from the director that their collection process was very disorganized and that access was open to many individuals within the organization, and that most of the data collectors were administrators who had no training on how to input proper data measures. I will later discuss the improvements that I made as far as data collection in the future for the organization. But from this, the missing variables made it very difficult to accurately collect data. So I gained access to the electronic health record system called WellAgent to verify any data with actual client encounters. The access to this system was vital to the improvement of the data set and also my input of demographic data on the clients. Shown in this slide is the original column labels and then my updated versions I made to each of the columns. And in the blue, you'll see those were moved cells in the data column, and the green were added cells to help with the input of data collection. I won't get too involved on the actual methods that I took to cleanse all the data, but one example to show the process was the conversion of AM and PM to military times, and then verifying those timestamps within the EHR, which were done with Excel shortcuts and replace features. Setting the data up to be analyzed took a considerable amount of time and patience, but I'm very pleased with the results, which will be presented to you guys in the next slide. We also, from that data and the timestamps, I was able to kind of see a spread of the month and day of the week, which you can see on here. Sundays and Saturdays were not high volume, and then August was very high. These were really big points to point out to different stakeholders, as well as the staffing and the need of the CIC at these points in time. Then this is the breakdown of the demographic of all of the clients coming into the organization. And then here is the demographic information and infographics that I showed to the stakeholders and different county officials as far as they could see what the people coming in, what their general backgrounds look like. And then also we looked at the referral source and grouping those into what the highest referrals were coming from. This was one of my favorite deliverables that I was able to produce for the organization as far as the need of the clients that are presenting to the CIC. And they had initially just, immediate need in their data set, and I wanted to kind of break it down into primary, secondary, and tertiary because mental health and crisis situations are multifaceted, and there's many reasons that are involving somebody coming in. And of all the reasons that I was able to narrow down, there was over 42 reasons. I think there's 42 to 45 different needs for people presenting in. And this word art that I was able to kind of craft shows the frequency of each need that they're presenting. And then I also kind of broke down as far as the percentages that they were having. And the top 3 primary needs were for mental health, preventative, and suicidal. So the big point I put on that is 14.3 of the people presenting to the CIC last year up until September 14th of this year were for suicidality. And I find that a very big statistic to show to the stakeholders that the organization is being used more as a safety net for a lot of the other organizations. And I don't know if you can see on there, but there were a lot of people that were coming in for drug abuse. There were a lot of people that were coming in for safety reasons and shelter and food and resources and just all these different things that I think many people within the county did not understand, that the organization was being used for suicide reasons, but it was also being used for a lot of other reasons. So it's helping filling in those gaps and addressing the needs of the population where other health departments might not be helping individuals, so they're reaching out to this organization to hopefully find the means and the correct ways to navigate the very complicated health system. The biggest takeaway that I gained from this entire experience was the collaboration and coordination of all the different human services departments. And the data really exposed a lot of the gaps that these organizations are not addressing. And the CIC was really being used as a safety net for a lot of the organizations. An example of this is homeless people that were getting denied from the shelter were coming to the CIC for a place to sleep at night as well as food. And these were really big things to kind of point out to county officials as far as, this program is being utilized in these ways because they're getting failed in other departments, and how can we better make this system so that everyone is getting addressed and that the constituents of Arlington are properly being met. And from that, I really got to see the vulnerable populations and people in crisis are in incredibly vulnerable states, and how the organization accesses their resources to help these people, as well as, the cultural competency that they must have in order to address all different backgrounds and stories of different people. And we look into the future as what we can do better in this organization. And one of the big things was the data collection to further highlight these key data points on what we already found in that first year of data, is to get a better collection process. And I created a Microsoft form so that the people that are inputting the data can just quickly put a drop-down menu and input it directly into the Excel sheet where only the manager has access to the sheet, so then he can analyze that data on that point. So there's no missing or misleading data. And looking forward into it, the cultural competency, they're looking at installing phone jacks and helping better meet people with language barriers and getting a more safe environment for all the people involved. I want to thank Abigail Austell and Joe Burgess, as well as Donald Reed, for all helping me with this entire experience and letting me really get the most out of a practicum experience and seeing how health systems work as far as the government organizations. And it really was super beneficial to me, and I'm really thankful for everything. Thank you, guys.